Well, good evening and welcome to Jim's Table Topics. This is our November 2021 edition. Yeah, we've been kind of radio silent since February 2021 just because of various sundry reasons of COVID, work, laziness. Okay, so I'm a little lazy, but we're back. We're back on the air. So welcome back. I hope we've been playing reruns, and actually, a funny thing about the reruns is that some of them have been banned by our illustrious leaders and banners. We'll get into that in the show. But at any rate, this November 2021 show is titled. What are we titled? We are titled Critical Thinking. I need to start critically thinking part 3, because I've talked about this over the years, critical thinking. It's very difficult to critical think if you're only given half the equation. You need to see the other half, no matter how messy people may think it is and want to protect you from the other half of the equation. The other half of the equation needs to be seen in its true light, not in its fake light, because that's what the fake news is all about. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna, my format has always been the same. I talk about, I give a little introduction, I talk about some things, and then I go into the good news about, I'm a Christian, I talk about the good news of Jesus and the Bible, and then we'll get into the fake news of the 24/7 we have to deal with the rest of our lives. But for a little while, we'll have a little peace, love, and joy in the good news. So without further ado, I'm going to start with my first slide. And this slide basically is, I just happened to see it, and I loved it. And it just kind of reminded me of, biblically speaking, it reminded me of, Jesus. When he ascended into heaven, he said, he ascended into heaven, and all the apostles and who's ever there watched him go up. That was in one of the Gospels. And then when you go into Acts, it says that when Jesus returns, he will come the same way he left. So when he ascended into heaven, he was in some kind of cloud formation, don't know what it looked like, and he rose up. Now, how that looked, they never did detail what it looked like, but I'm sure it was amazing. And so when he comes back, it's going to be equally amazing. And so that's just something that I thought about. But again, the show is good news, bad news, but again, this is what I'm talking about, half of the equation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she says to me, what socialism means is to guarantee a basic level of dignity. You can spin socialism any way you want, but ignorance, those who are ignorant of history are doomed to repeat it. I mean, the Soviet socialism, the Chinese socialism, Cambodian socialism, the Venezuelan socialism, it was brutal and bad, okay? And you don't have to look too far. And the people who have escaped this socialism right here that we're talking about that leads to communism are screaming for America to stop listening to folks like AOC. Again, and how does it all work, you ask? It works because, I love this little saying, the forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe, for the axe was clever and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them. And the media and everyone else just sings the same tune, oh, we're one of you. And look at what's happening. These laws out of control. They're not even really laws. They're, what are they? They're mandates, shutdowns, suggestions, but they're not really laws. Okay. So again, we're going to stop it. That was my introduction. Now let's get into the good news. Lord, have mercy on us all. Let's get into the good news. Again, this is something someone sent me. I knocked on heaven's door this morning. God asked me, my child, what can I do for you? And I said, Father, please protect and bless the person reading this. God smiled and replied, request granted. So be kind and repose, for everyone you meet is fighting some kind of battle. 93% won't post, but I hope you are one of the 7% that will. And let someone else know that A new day is dawning, and so is a new blessing. Amen. So I read it, and you're 100%. I'm saying it 100% to everyone who's listening. God loves you. He wants to help you through the day, and it's a good way to start the day praying. And again, enjoy your day. Be still and know that I am God. It seems that sometimes we kind of rush around too much. We're zipping around here, there, and everywhere, and we're not really paying attention to, stop and smell the roses and the forsythias and listen to the birds sing, and just, try to get a little peace in our spirit before we attack the big problems. I find myself personally that if I have a decision to make, I got a big problems, or I got an issue I got to solve, or whatever, if I don't dwell and, suffer on it. I try to pray and do something else. And then while I'm doing something else that I'm enjoying and whatever, the answer pops in. So whether that's divine or just the way our brain works, either way works for me. Don't know, we all have different ways to cope and to understand the meaning of life. And so my meaning and my way is the biblical way. And so here we go. So this is another little cartoon I got here. Matthew 26:41. Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Okay, so, I do have a whole, we talk about the spirit, we talk about the flesh, but what are we all talking about? What do we really, really mean? In Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, it talks about the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So then you got to stop and think about what is the opposite of all, these are the fruits of the Spirit. This is what God wants us to do. He wants us to be, I'm losing my place. I'm a little rusty. He wants us to be loving and joyful and peaceful and patient and kind and good and faithful and gentle and have self-control. So when I look at what's happening in the world, I'm saying to myself, I'm not seeing a lot of, self-control. I'm not really seeing a lot of patience, It's kind of what they've been talking about. It's a mob mentality, but, they think they're screaming for rights, but, I got to tell you, it was pretty brutal, that Summer of Love, where they were calling the riots and burnings and everything, peaceful, but were they really? No, they weren't. So, okay. But again, that's, the biblical praying and things. And again, God doesn't want us to be anxious about anything. But in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guide your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. And that's Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7. And again, focusing on Jesus is something that we need to really, at least for me, it's calming, and it helps me put things into perspective. There's like the old saying used to be, think globally, act locally. So spiritually, it's think heavenly and act earthly. Act earthly, because there are a lot of things. Geez, I'm missing a slide. I guess I missed one somewhere along the line. But I had a picture of a guy who was digging who was leaning on a shovel, and the thing said, he's praying for a hole, but basically you have to dig the hole. God will, help you, but you got to start the action. So whatever you're praying for, you want peace, then you need to bring peace to the table. You want a hole, you got to start digging, or hire someone to dig it for you. You have to take action. But when we talk about action, again, I'm going to go back to the action of the Spirit. We have to take our action and love and peace and harmony and joy and, patience, kindness. We have to, these riots and some of these things that have been going on and on and on, and praise are very violent and very unrestful and very frightening, to tell you the truth. People were boarding up. They were scared, and they're still scared because of what's going on. But again, this is the good news, but you can't have the good news without the bad news. It's like, well, we're spiritual beings, but we're trapped on this earth, and so we need to use our spiritual understanding to help this world see the light. Yeah, see the light. That's right, the light. What's true, what's right, what is real justice? There was a little saying my sister had. She really loved this, and I've said it several times. I'm going to say it again. And we all kind of get confused about what is justice. Justice is getting what you deserve. Okay, so if you do something bad, then there's always a penalty for that bad. Whatever bad you did, there's a penalty for it. If you get mercy, mercy is not getting what you deserve. So if you did something bad, we always talk about God's mercy. God is not going to punish you for that if you repent and sin, But the world, if you broke a real law, you'll have to pay for that on earth. But spiritually, you're forgiven by Jesus. He gives you mercy. And then grace is getting what you don't deserve. So even if you're good, bad, or indifferent, it doesn't matter. You get something that you don't deserve. Like if you get a paycheck, you're working for the paycheck, so you get a paycheck because you worked for that. But if you're just, sitting home, you get the mail, all of a sudden in the mail it says, hey, just because, we thought of you, here's a check for $1,000. Do whatever you want. You didn't work for it. You didn't ask for it. You didn't earn it. It's just, that's grace. Okay, getting something you don't deserve and you don't even know you're getting it. Sometimes you don't even know you're getting grace. Sometimes you don't know you're getting mercy. But I can guarantee you know when you're getting justice, because you're either going to be in jail or you're going to be a hurting buckaroo. Okay, so needless to say, we have to think about the world we live in. And are we bringing the peace, love, and joy to it, or are we creating havoc? So you got to look at the pictures and see what's going on. I mean, this show is only an hour long. I can't undo 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of all the stuff that's going on in this world. I don't even know what's going on half the time. I hear things and I don't know if I don't know who to believe and trust and lead and follow anymore. So I do the best I can with what I got. That's all I can do. That's all I can do. That's all we can all do. So, and are we bringing peace to the table? There was a great litany, I think it was put out by St. Francis of Assisi. I'm going to have to find that someday. But basically it said, where there is sorrow, let me bring comfort. Where there is hate, let me bring love. Where there is peace, where there was war, let me bring peace. Where there's hate, let me bring love. What are we bringing to the table, people? And why is it that when some people, granted, we all have our emotions, and we all get, sometimes there's, there's like an emotional response. You have to allow for people's emotional response. But it's a 1 or 2 shot deal. Hey, like if someone dies or there's a tragedy or something, or you see something that's totally not just, unjust. It's not just. It's, and so your first emotion is, no, don't do that, no. And then you have, then now you have to take, cautious steps, like I said, steps of the Spirit to bring true healing, true peace, true love to the issue. And that's what I'm advocating. We need to come to the table, and sometimes people don't want to hear what we say, and they poo-ha-ha the truth. Well, we'll get into that in the fake news. But when there's, the high-tech folks are actually hiding. I could say something on this show, and they would block it because like I said, 3 of the shows that I had up in the past have been blocked and hidden from your view because I said something that might, I don't know, violated community standards. And the community standards, you know, you get those disclaimers, you got to read 25 pages before you, unless you use the Facebook or whatever. And do you read it? Of course not. You just click on it and go. But somewhere in there, you can't say this, you can't say, you can't do this, you can't. So there you go. And they call it hateful, hate speech. Truth is now hate speech. Okay. Again, may God be with you, and may you have peace and joy in your future. In the name of Jesus, I pray these things for you. Amen. So we're going to move on from the good news to whatever comes next, which is, I did want to just end up with, I did start watching this Panorama of Prophecy. It's a Bible study, Doug Batchelor. It's amazing facts. I think you go to amazingfacts.org.com, whatever, and you know, I mean, it's intense. It's a special thing he started. It's like an hour every night, okay, and I've watched 2 hours of it, but in 2 hours, it's like, wow. I mean, I know a lot of biblical stuff, but wow. And it's just interesting, the prophecy and the fulfillment of prophecy. And, you know, this is what I'm talking about. Who are you going to believe? Okay, they debunked the Bible. But then the people who know intimately the Bible have debunked the people who have debunked the Bible. Okay, so now who are you going to believe? The first debunkers or the second debunkers? You have to make a decision what you're going to believe. The debunkers are all over the place. I mean, I think it's funny sometimes I'm talking to people, and you can just tell that they're dazing off, they're closing, they don't want to hear what I'm saying. But then if I mention something that is in their wheelhouse, all of a sudden, boom! Oh, they're interested. Oh. And most of the time it's negative stuff, People, I don't know why that is. We tend to focus on the negative, but when you try to bring peace, love, and joy to I'm not believing in that stuff. Okay. But at any rate, you can go there, check it out if you want. But now, again, I don't really want to leave the good news. Do we have to go to the bad news? Do I have to? Okay, I will. I know people tell me I'm supposed to be slowing it down and talking a little slower. I guess that's part of the emotion that I'm talking about. I'm a little emotional. I'm talking, but I'll try to slow it down. I really will. Okay, so then, because the title of this show is, Critical Thinking, Part 3, which, again, talked about for eons, what are we learning? Where are we getting our information? What are the kids learning in school? What are we getting off the web, off the newspapers, off the media, off TV, off cell phones, or wherever we get our information? There's just way too much information out. But I can tell you right now, like 1984 and The Animal Farm, these 2 books were written by George Orwell, who lived through the Russian socialism, communism, the idealistic utopia. And he's warning you what can happen and how brutally and bad it is in these books, okay? So if the kids aren't allowed to read these and know what's going on, then, AOC can say those stupid, socialism is great, it's great. And that's the narrative. They tell you it's great, but if you look at all these forewarnings and just some of the Hollywood hype about this stuff, in Fahrenheit 451, it was like the Third Reich, what they did in Germany. They burnt all the books. They didn't want anybody to know what happened in the past, and they recreated the past, like tearing down all the monuments, so that they could create redefine everything. And that's what they're doing. They're redefining everything. As we speak, the CDC is redefining what a vaccine is for us. Okay, that's great. Okay, so again, the information is out there. Again, what are you going to believe? Do you even know this stuff exists? So Fahrenheit 451 is kind of like what the high-tech guys are doing to people like me. Ghosting, blocking. See, if you're ghosted, you don't even know it. Well, we'll get that. So, and again, this is what I'm talking about. You need to know what's going on. So in the cycle of history, we can just, this is we all have a life cycle. We're born, we live through adolescence, what do you call it? Kindergarten, grammar school, that's our cycle of life. We learn, we grow, and then we get old and die. Summer, winter of our life. So now we have this is the cycle of a nation. So when you're in bondage, like if you watched with a Braveheart, right? In bondage, or you can even America, we were, America from its start to 1776 against the Project 1617 or whatever, 1619, was owned and operated by the British, not America. America wasn't America until 1776. America was British, okay? So we were under the bondage of the British, and they wouldn't give us our freedom, and they did all these tyrannical things. That's why we wrote the Declaration of Independence. You got to stop doing this stuff, or we're going to have to. So when you're in bondage, you have spiritual faith, you get courage, and then you fight for liberty, the Revolutionary War. And then once you have liberty through the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, then we go into abundance, in which we have. America has been the most profitable, everyone is fighting the streets of gold in America. They thought America was heaven. All the immigrants came legally. They came for hundreds of years. And they came and they were sponsored and they had to stay in quarantine to make sure they weren't sick. And so then we grew exponentially. And, the history books are around, the critical race theory will debunk all this stuff, but this is the life cycle. Then all of a sudden, all this abundance has turned into selfishness. This is what's happening. We got complacency. We got apathy. And so between the selfishness, complacency, and apathy, this is where all this politically correct stupidity comes in, CTR and all this other stuff that's not quite, it's the truth but twisted. It's correct but twisted. It's not really true. And then we're going to end up into dependence and back into bondage. The cycle will start all over. So we are pretty much right here. So the question is, are we going to continue this, or are we going to stop what's going on? So again, I guess I went overboard on that. We're going to keep moving. Okay, again, the same slide. To me, socialism means, and we've had it. That's what it is. So are our kids learning this stuff in school? Should public college students be required to take a class on the Constitution in order to graduate? We make them take all sorts of other things. Do they really understand the difference? People talk about, and in fact, PragerU, I've got 3 videos, and maybe next month I'll put on the one, we're not a democracy, okay? America is not a democracy. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, we are a republic, and if you don't understand the difference between the republic and a democracy, then you sure as heck don't understand the difference between socialism and communism and what's going on. So we all need to bone up on what's going on. Okay. So, and we talk about what the kids are learning in school. It's the national epidemic. They're getting support from the feds to the state to the local community boards. If you have to hide the curriculum from the parents of your students, you don't belong in a classroom or even close proximity to anyone's kids. Okay, so their curriculum is all full of buzzwords, and you think they mean one thing, but they actually mean something else, and that's what CTR and Common Core learning and all these educational things are all about. So, and then again, like I said, you got A.C. Garland, like I said, a few emotions popped. There was a serious issue that happened here, but he's going to put anyone who speaks out, I guess me talking like this, I guess I would be on the FBI's most wanted list right here, because I'm talking about this guy starting a whole investigation from the Department of Justice onto school boards and parents at school meetings, because this guy here has a company that drives critical race theory. So again, and who else knows? It's all part of the narrative. It's all part of the agenda. I'm just here sounding the alarm. Hey, look here. This is not right, folks. It's just not right. So we just had the election. Keep Virginia blue, vote McAuliffe, keep parents out of the classrooms. That's what he said, but then he tried to backtrack it. This is what I'm talking about. They're so comfortable in their conspiracy that they're always talking. They live in their own little bubble. And so they're talking, and so he would say things, we got to keep parents out of the classrooms. Well, when real parents hear that, they go, no. So that's why we had the big, we had the election, and now if you look at, again, you listen to the talking heads, it's like the only reason McAuliffe lost is because all the white supremacist racists voted for the other guy, Youngkins, the governor who won, okay? But the problem with that is, let me see. The problem with that is I had it written down. I got a lot of stuff written down. I'm missing a lot of stuff, but I want to get to this one. The lieutenant governor is, well, I forget her name, but she's black. So how can you call this red sweep? She's a black conservative woman, okay? I think her name is Sears. That's right, Sears. Lost my place because I haven't been following along, but okay. So at any rate, again, it's the false narrative. They keep hopping. It's white supremacist racism that caused McAuliffe to lose, but no. It's the fact that the establishment has been lying to the parents, and the parents have woken up. So it's nationally, it's in the states. What about Massachusetts? Well, right here in what do you call it? Where are we? This is Wellesley has a parents group, okay? And what are the kids saying on the Wellesley? Go to the Wellesley's website. It says, my son says the learning environment is toxic and that he is unable to openly share his opinions or ideas. This is in Wellesley, a few miles away, down south. My son says he literally just tells the teachers what they want to hear because, whether it's true or not. And my daughter says she learned about the dark continent myth in the 7th and 8th and 10th grade, but has not learned anything about the Holocaust, World War I or World War II, or the Vietnam or 9/11. Another one says, my daughter comes home day after day and says she learned nothing. So again, it's very difficult for the kids to focus on what the heck's happening when, everything's been politicized. Everything has been politicized. In the old days, nothing was politicized. So that's why things are so polarized, so toxic, so caustic. You can't have a normal conversation because if you don't agree, all of a sudden they just all automatically think I'm a whack job. So again, I'm just a regular guy. My daughters both went through Danvers High School. They graduated last century, but again, it's there's just a lot of things that need to be said. And again, what I'm talking about, so not locally, that's where we are. Nationally, I'm going to have to pick up the pace here. The press stood on Donald Trump's head because of the Capitol assault, but he was still speaking when it started, and he said, go over there peacefully and patriotically and just make your voices heard. It was infiltrated by a bunch of false flag insurrectionists that BLMs, and they got evidence and everything, but it's just not coming out. But these people really railed and said hateful things, and they just go, it's unreported. Like I said, if Donald Trump said any of these things, you'd hear him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These people say it, it's okay, nothing to see here. So if you think voter ID is racist, but the vaccine passport is just fine, you need some serious help thinking through your public policy. Again, I'm going to have to come back to these. I think that I want to, what we're going to do is I'm going to go to the videos now. And so like I said, these are 3 PragerU videos, and they just kind of sum up what I've been talking about as far as critical race theory, who are the racists, and what's being taught in school. It's going to be 3 things back to back. Yeah, get out a pen, take notes, or you can go to PragerU. PragerU.com, and they have all these 5-minute videos that you can see. So, okay, so without further ado, we're going to start the videos. No, we're not. Minimize. Let me see where I am and why I'm here. Hold on. Okay, I did have a little technical glitch there, but that's okay. Well, I think I am. David, what icon is the? Oh, I think I got it. I got it. Okay, I'm sorry. So we're going to go right to the PragerU, and we're going to start with What is CTR by James Lindsley. Then we're going to go to Who Are the Racists by Derek Green. And What Are Your Kids Really Learning in School by Jill Semenian. And again, these 3 videos, they'll introduce themselves and they're self-explanatory. So let's just, I'll see you in 16 minutes and 30 seconds.
Have you heard about critical race theory? I'm guessing you probably have. It has already insinuated itself into many institutions and is making rapid progress into others. If it takes hold, it will completely change the very nature of America and the way you live. Critical race theory holds that the most important thing about you is your race. The color of your skin, that's who you are. Not your behavior, not your values, not your environment. Your race. In critical race theory, if you are a member of a minoritized racial group, their term, not mine, you are a victim of a system that is rigged against you, a system that doesn't want you to succeed. On the other hand, if your race is privileged, you're an exploiter, whether you intend to be or not. Critical race theory begins from the assumption that racism occurs in all interactions. To see how this works, consider this thought experiment. Imagine you own a shop and 2 customers enter at the same time, one white and one black. Who do you help first? If you help the black person first, critical race theory would say you did so because you don't trust black people to be left alone in your store. That's racist. If you help the white person first instead, critical race theory would say you did so because you think blacks are second-class citizens. That's racist too. That's critical race theory. It can find racism in anything, even if it has to read your mind to do it. Critical race theory is a uniquely American invention. Brewed up at Harvard Law School in the 70s, now part of the academic and media mainstream, it is also uniquely un-American because it rejects the core tenets of the American, classically liberal Judeo-Christian value system. It turns the bedrock American idea upside down. Here it is in the words of Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanchik, 2 leading proponents. Critical race theory questions the very foundations of the liberal order, including equality theory, legal reasoning, Enlightenment rationalism, and the neutral principles of constitutional law. It does this because critical race theory proponents assume racism is present everywhere and always, and they look for it critically until they find it. And they always find it. It has to be there because that's how the imperial European powers and then America set things up. Here, as in all dangerous academic theories, there is a kernel of truth. Human beings were not preoccupied with race until the 16th century, when Europeans began to explore and then colonize other parts of the world. Drawing distinctions between the races reached its peak in the 19th century with the widespread use of slave labor in North and South America. No one denies this. But since then, the Western world, and most especially America, has spent a lot of time, money, and blood breaking free of its racist past. It's been a rocky road for sure, but great progress has been made. Critical race theory says all this progress is a mirage. Racism never died, never even faded a little bit. It just hid itself better. Critical race theory, therefore, is not a continuation of the civil rights movement. It is, in fact, a repudiation of it. To critical race theorists, Martin Luther King was both wrong and naive. White Americans can never judge blacks by the content of their character. They can only judge them, always unfavorably, consciously or unconsciously, by the color of their skin. Ironically, Not since the Aryan obsession in Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, or South African apartheid in the second half of the 20th century, has the social movement been so obsessed with race. Critical race theory is then, in a very real sense, a counter-American revolution. But that's a positive, not a negative to those who subscribe to the theory. The American experiment was given a 400-year tryout, and it doesn't work. So let's scrap it. That's what they believe. Is that what you believe? I'm going to guess that most of you don't. So how do we stop critical race theory before it infects the brains of too many decent Americans, especially young people, and turns us into something we have never been and shouldn't ever want to be? The answer is simple. Refuse to accept it. Don't be intimidated by the heads I win, tails you lose logic of this self-destructive, America-hating, anti-reality idea. Don't be bullied into thinking that you're racist when you know you're not, or that you're a victim when you know you're not. Defend yourself, while you still can. I'm James Lindsay, founder of New Discourses for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Every single day, someone of prominence on the left, a politician, a cable news host, an entertainment figure, accuses someone on the right of being a racist. Here are typical examples. MSNBC host Chris Matthews said this: "The age of Jim Crow managed to find a new habitat in the 21st century Republican Party." Comedian Seth Meyers told his late-night audience that Republicans traffic in open racism. Tennessee State Representative London Lamar, a black woman, announced that the entire state of Tennessee is racist, period. This was just after she was elected in Tennessee. The left calling the right racist isn't new. It's been going on for decades. Republican presidents Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush, his son George W. Bush, were all accused of being racist. And of course, from the left's perspective, racist is essentially Donald Trump's middle name. To call someone a racist is a very serious charge. A racist is a person who believes that one race is inherently superior or inferior to another. It's not intelligence, character, or values that determine an individual's worth. It's his or her skin color. To say that racism is foolish and stupid, not to mention evil, is to understate the case. But according to most Democrats, Republicans are that stupid and that evil. So let's examine some conservative policies to see if they are indeed racist. If they are, then the left has a valid complaint. And if they're not, then the left is lying. The long-standing conservative opposition to affirmative action is a good place to start. It was Democratic President John F. Kennedy who in 1961 first used the term affirmative action. But affirmative action in the way we think of it now wasn't implemented until 1970, during the administration of a Republican president, Richard Nixon. The theory was that, because of historical discrimination, blacks were at a competitive disadvantage to other races and ethnicities. To erase that disadvantage, standards that most blacks presumably couldn't meet had to be lowered. One could make the case that this policy had some utility when it was first put in place. But that was a long time ago. The conservative position is that blacks have repeatedly proven they can compete with anyone without the benefits of lower standards. There are countless examples of black success in every field at every level. The policy is no longer necessary. But the conservative argument goes further. Study after study shows that, in the case of college admissions, affirmative action hurts more blacks than it helps. By lowering admission standards for blacks and some other minority students, colleges set many of these students up for failure. They get placed in schools for which they are not prepared. And high black dropout rates confirm this view. How could it be otherwise? If academically unprepared white students were admitted to Ivy League schools, they too would be set up to fail. Conservatives believe blacks and other minorities are every bit as capable as whites of succeeding as engineers, surgeons, policemen, businessmen, lawyers, and college students. And therefore, lowering standards for blacks is unnecessary as well as insulting. Yet for this belief, conservatives are called racist. The irony, of course, is that those who accuse conservatives of being racist believe blacks and other minorities are not as capable as whites of succeeding and therefore still need affirmative action, almost a half-century after it was first implemented. Let's look at another issue where this contrast between conservatives and those who accuse them of being racist is even more starkly drawn: voter ID. Conservatives say America should require every voter to present an ID when voting, just as European countries do to help keep their elections honest. Are all these democracies racist? Of course not. Yet the accusers say that conservatives who support voter ID are racist. Why do they say this? Because, they argue, it's really a ruse to prevent blacks and other minorities from voting, since many of them just aren't capable of acquiring an ID. Can you get more condescending than that? Let's be real. You need an ID to drive, to fly, to buy a beer, even to purchase some cold medicines. Whites can do it, but blacks can't? Tell me again who the racists are? One more example. It's conservatives who push for school choice, which would allow all parents, not just wealthy ones, to decide where their children attend school. Tuition vouchers, charter schools, these are conservative initiatives. Those on the left fight these reforms at every turn. It's the left that doesn't trust minority parents to select an appropriate school for their children. Why aren't the people who keep black children in failing schools the racists? At some point, maybe you'll start asking yourself like I did, who's really obsessed with race, the left or the right? And whose policies really hurt blacks? Maybe it's not who you think it is. I'm Derek Green of Project 21 for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To help keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
What's happening in our schools? Colleges have become leftist indoctrination centers. It's not a new problem. It's been going on for decades, first behind the scenes and now out front. That's how radical change happens. It creeps up on us. And when we finally figure out what's going on, it's too late. What's been happening on college campuses is now happening in elementary schools and high schools. I know. I'm a mom of 2 school-aged kids. I've seen it with my own eyes. More and more parents are seeing it too. Thanks to the lockdowns and Zoom, we're getting a window into our children's classes. It's not a pretty picture. Kids, really young kids, are being taught stuff so radical, so devoid of what real education is, it should alarm us all. Here are a few examples. Recently, Chicago Public Schools adopted an American history curriculum based on the 1619 Project published and promoted by the New York Times. The 1619 Project asserts that America's founding was not marked by the Declaration of Independence in 1776, but the arrival of the first African slaves in Jamestown in 1619. Historians from across the political spectrum have denounced this as a giant lie. The New York Times has walked back many of the project's original claims. Still, this malicious slander of America is now being taught in schools as truth. And what is that truth? That America is, was, and always has been a fundamentally racist country, and that white Americans today bear responsibility for all current and historic racism. This bleeds perfectly into another educational debacle: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, this might sound innocent, but don't be fooled. It's a dangerous euphemism for something called critical race theory. Critical race theory says that racism is woven into the very fabric of American society. What does this look like in a school setting? Middle and high school students in Wellesley, Massachusetts, are being taught to be on the lookout for unconscious racial bias in their classmates. "We need your help," an email to students reads. "Your school leaders will be working with you this year on how to be proactive about preventing bias incidents and how to report them should they occur." This warped vision of America doesn't stop at race. In Colorado, first graders are being taught that just because someone looks like a boy doesn't mean they are. Only they can know who they truly are. Gender is something they choose for themselves, based on how masculine or feminine they feel. Or maybe they're not fully a boy or a girl, but something in between, whatever that may be. To repeat, that's what children are taught in first grade. Imagine what they're taught in second or third grade. And, of course, the world faces imminent disaster from global warming. The American Federation of Teachers has fully endorsed the most radical aspects of the Green New Deal, which is already featured in California school curriculums. In sum, many of our schools are teaching children that our past is terrible and that they have no future. That if they are white, they are racist whether they know it or not. If they're black, they're victims, whether they experience it or not. That they should constantly question their sexual identity. With all this being drummed into their heads, no wonder today's kids have more psychological problems than any previous generation. Maybe you think I'm cherry-picking examples to exaggerate my point, or maybe you're one of the lucky ones who sends your kids to a school that has yet to be infected by this radical agenda. Maybe. But if I were you, I wouldn't take it on faith. Find out for yourself. When I did, I was shocked to learn that all of this is happening in my school district right now. So find out what's being taught in your kid's school. Take a good hard look at curricula. Ask administrators if they endorse the 1619 project. Are they pushing a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda? If so, demand to see what materials the school is using. At a minimum, get to know your kids' teachers and principals. Join the PTA, attend local school board meetings, look for allies among reasonable, like-minded parents. You don't have to agree with each other on everything. You just have to agree that the brainwashing of our children stops here. Stops now. Americans know what our children should be learning, that they must take responsibility for their conduct, that race is the least important aspect of another person, that hard work and rational thought are things we all value, that there is nothing wrong with the bodies they were born into, and that America was founded not to promote racism, but to guarantee sacred liberties and opportunities to its citizens. And it wouldn't hurt if they learned reading and writing and math, too. I'm Jill Simonian, founder of thefabmom.com for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. If you're a parent or an educator, join PragerU's PrEP program. There, you'll find the resources you need to teach our children about American values without the indoctrination.
Okay, welcome back. Again, I can't say this enough. The 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and what's going on in the school and what we just heard in these videos. Again, some of the things that are being taught in school, I mean, they just jumped out like red flags to me. I read a report once that there was a woman, she was a psychoanalyst in New York, and she said that a lot of kids were coming to her and they were cutting themselves and doing all sorts of damage to themselves, out of frustration and concern because they were frustrated beyond normal limits. And she said that there was a whole rash of them, and she came to the conclusion that these kids were not being taught age inappropriate material. They're being taught developmentally inappropriate material. In other words, the things that are inherently based in the CRT and the Project 1619 are inherently age inappropriate. They're developmentally inappropriate. Kids can't understand those concepts or those ideals until they're well developed into their late teens and 20s. That's why we have kindergarten, grammar school, middle school, high school. It's a progression. You can't learn this stuff when you're in kindergarten. So again, we really need to focus on what's really happening in the schools and what it's not. See, it's the whole culture. It's the whole narrative. The whole ship, the whole Titanic of America is going right for the iceberg. And so people like Rand Paul, he's trying to raise these issues, and they're labeling him as an evil, vicious person, just like they talked about in the 5-minute videos. But he's called Dr. Fauci on the carpet, on the Senate, and all these, some of the scientific stuff isn't really as scientific as we think. But you can't hear the other side of the story because we can't. It's being shut down. It's being shut down. Now think of it. If you think voter ID is racist, but have a vaccine passport is just fine. You need some, we have to look at the contradictory, the hypocrisy of the narratives and the thoughts they're trying to teach us. Again, even just the masking. Why is AOC and all these other, elites unmasked, but the people that are serving them have masks like us? And how many times has this happened over and over again? You've heard about the governor of California, this one, that one, Speaker of the House. Hundreds of cases of people. The laws are for thee, but not for me. Okay, that's socialism. That's communism and all. So what's it called when people doing the fact checking are controlled by the same people that are doing the lying? Well, this is what happens. It's a hypocrisy. Okay, and again, how can you tell the truth is being told? You can tell when Facebook blocks it, Twitter bans it, Google hides it, and YouTube deletes it. Government censors it, and the media never mentions it. So those are the things, those are the red flags, folks. They're all over the place, and we need to start paying attention. I'm just trying to focus. Look here. They're telling you, no, don't look there, look here. No. And that's why it's very, and again, the hypocrisy just never ends. Psaki says the White House has been flagging problematic posts on Facebook they believe are misinformation. Gee, I wonder if Trump did that, what would have happened? Oh yeah, that's misinformation, but they lied about him for 5 years and it still continues today. George Washington said, if freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent may we be led like sheep to the slaughter. Okay, folks? So that's pretty much what we're talking about here. And so, again, when I talk about the fact that the fake news, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the narrative is misleading us, that's why the forest keeps voting for the axe and wondering why the forest is shrinking and all the trees are getting chopped. That's why, because it's just not that the axe was clever. He's being covered by Hollywood, by the media, all forms, by high tech, Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of them, and our leaders, all our leaders, Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter. They all support the narrative. There's only a few, very few, who will speak out against it. And when they do, they're summarily vilified, as we saw in those critical race 5-minute videos and the training videos. It's just bad. And again, we need to, that's it. We need to take this to heart. We're going to have to start voting these people out and getting, I'd rather have some, we got to get rid of the career politicians. The reason that they're career politicians, and one of the reasons, like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and they're all in their 80s, and they can't stop. They can't relinquish power, because what happens is if they leave, then all their secrets will be exposed and all their corruption, and that's what's going on. And you know what? It's just not Democrats. It's Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. They're all in the same boat. They all told the same. They'll pretend, but when the rubber hits the road, they're voting for the narrative. And who are these people? It's the council. The council has spoken, and I don't know which council you're listening to, but like I said, I'm sticking to the biblical Jesus council, and I'm not going to believe much of what I hear from people who have a vested interest and are kind of jaded and biased. I'm not jaded and biased. I listen to both sides of the story. Heck, I got to listen to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I got to listen to this stuff that it says that just... wrong, that's a lie, that's not true. Oh. But, yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's right. I got to shrink this down to get to the next one. I don't even know where I am anymore. But we'll keep talking. And just, yeah, I'm wrapping it up. I just said, these are things that I just thought were kind of funny. I can't believe it's riot season already. I still have my COVID-19 decorations up. I just thought it was funny. Yeah. We've been doing this for an hour. We have to have a little levity. Again, you can't be so serious about this stuff. Yes, there's a lot of evil. There's a lot of bad things happening, and we'll get into it, just in a minute there, because, I mean, I just had, my sister just passed away, and I'm going to talk about her at the end of the show. But yeah, I mean, things happen, and we have to realize what's more important. What's the focus of life here, people? What should we be doing, and what should we be focusing on? This is just another funny, silly one that I thought of that popped. Someone posted my top 5 exercises, and I get jumping to conclusions, flying off the handle, carrying things too far, dodging responsibilities, and pushing my luck. There used to be another one that's I guess I can't say it, about something about the boss, stabbing the boss in the back. Those are the exercises we get here on the work site. But again, this is when you're stuck in the world, when you're stuck and you're in your non-spiritual mode, these are the worldly things that just contradict what we should be doing spiritually. We need to be more patient. We need to stop and ponder things, and we have to, be loving and kind and considerate. And so that's what we need to focus on. And finally, it all depends on how you look at it. Are these good times or are these bad times? When you look back at Trump, everyone was working, the economy was great, everything, things were moving. Those were good times. Now we're in bad times. So I will tell you, this little thing just really interested me. I can see if I can get a little bit bigger here. I don't know. Yeah, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create bad times. So depending on what the times are, you can figure out who's causing it and what's going to happen. Okay, so I just thought this was really an eye-opener. And so when we're in weak times, when we're in bad times, they're being created by weak men. So think about it. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. And again, on a somber note, the good news is the gospel is the only good news. And when we understand the bad news. So we've talked about the bad news, and again, how much more of this can we take? We got to focus on the good news. So like I said, my sister passed away September 4th, 2021. That's like 2 months ago, exactly 2 months in a day. And someone sent me this, posted it, and it was pretty interesting. It was just a little quote: grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor a lack of faithfulness. It's the price of love. And, I love my sister, and it's just hard to see that she's gone. But, she left us, and she died in her sleep, and I guess you can't see that. Boy, that's kind of fuzzy-wuzzy there. But at any rate, this, when you go to a funeral wakes, they have the prayer cards. Well, this is Betty. This is my sister Betty Sogi. She born July 21st, 1943. She died September 4th, 2021. And this is her prayer card. And again, she lived her life, and she wanted this. This was specifically written in her, in her instructions, that she wanted everyone to know that she loved Jesus and Jesus loved you, and that behold, on the back of her prayer card, behold, I stand, this is a quote from Revelations, behold, I stand at the door and I knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, and I will come in and sup with them and dine with them, and you dine with me. And so we have to invite God. He's not going to tackle you and force you to go to church. You have to accept him. You have to go willingly. And that's what the good news is all about. Is you have to stop our evil ways. We have to turn and go back. And that's what that's all about. We have to meet Jesus where he is at the cross. And so Betty, this was the prayer that she wrote. Dear God, I know that I am a sinner. I ask for your forgiveness. I believe Jesus Christ is your son. I believe that he died on the cross for my sins, and that you raised him from the dead. And I want to trust him as my Savior. Trust him as my Savior and follow him as Lord from this day forward. Guide my life and help me to do your will. I pray this in the name of Jesus, amen. And that's my tribute to my sister Betty. I told myself, love you, Betty. And okay, so our next show will be in December sometime, and it will be a Christmas show. It'll be our first Christmas without Betty, but hey, what can I tell you? That's my tribute to Betty, and we will start our show in December and keep going. So thanks for watching. Tell your friends, and a lot of good information. Keep it coming. Good night.